What's up, Jet Nation? GreenBean back with you. Today I'm coming to you live from the secret private lair of the Barry Gibb private studio. Very exclusive. And if there's anything that I know to be true, it's that talking about football in the studio with rock stars is their favorite thing in the world to do. Ain't that right?
Not really.
So it turns out I've been bothering him with Jets football. Technically speaking, you're a Miami fan, aren't you?
Technically, but I gave up a long time ago.
Maybe that's what we should be doing. So we'll be right back with you with all things Jets talk when On the Road with GreenBean returns.
GreenBean.
All right, Jet Nation, I am actually back at the pad after having been down there at the studio in Miami. I just drove back from Miami to Virginia, where I currently reside. And I've been watching very closely to see what happened during the first 2 days of the legal negotiating period in free agency 2020. And I have some thoughts on what we've been doing, and I'd love to share them with you and then see what you think about it. So we whiffed big on the first day of free agency. Make no mistake, we wanted guys like Conklin and Glasgow, Bradbury, and even Van Noy. We wanted those guys, and we were unable to seal the deal. Now, whether that's with not wanting to meet the contract demands. For example, Conklin, while it looks like a $14 million per year deal, it's not that. It's $20 million in the first year, and then it goes, it drops significantly where there's reason to believe there will be renegotiation from the Conklin side of things after the TV deals are finalized, and that's why he agreed to it. So, it's a $20 million a year deal, or at least for that first year. So Joe Douglas was not willing to pay that. So there's a positive there, which is, hey, this guy isn't McCagnon. This guy isn't, Trader Mike, and he's not going to just throw money around and bind himself for the next couple of years. He's actually setting a budget, and he's sticking to it as best he can. Now, there's a word for that called disciplined, which we are not used to in Florham Park. It's not our cup of tea being disciplined. So that's the positive. The negative is that we are in Sam Darnold's rookie contract, and we were unable to get some of the marquee, some of the sure thing free agents like Conklin and Glasgow for what amounted to a couple $1 million in Glasgow's case. From what I understand, the Jets were stuck right around $9 million, and Glasgow got 11, I think it was. So, and if you look at that, we actually made it through almost the whole first day of free agency without doing anything. Jets fans were going nuts all over Twitter and Instagram and the Jet Nation message board there. It was ballistic. It was as if the world just ended, like there was some plague floating around and everybody had to stay in their homes or something. It was crazy. So, you would imagine that it was the end of the world. And at the end of that day, we did make a signing for a left tackle, a man by the name of George Fant, which, if I'm going to be real honest with you, I never heard of before Joe Douglas pulled the trigger and signed him. So the good news with him is that he's an athletic guy. He's 27 years old, but somehow is actually still raw. He came to football later from playing basketball primarily. So he was newer to the game, was making some strides in Seattle for the Seahawks. He was slated to start in 2017 and blew out his ACL and has since had some difficulty cracking the starting lineup and played some swing duty, and then actually even played tight end and scored a touchdown. So he has that kind of athletic ability. With this rumor of wide split sets for the offensive line, he might be exactly what we need, but the jury's out on this guy. It's a real hit or miss kind of thing. And while Sam Darnold is on his rookie contract, depending on a guy like George Fant, might not be the most advisable thing to do, to protect Sam Darnold's blind side. It's a little bit scary. My hope is that he's our swing tackle, can hold the left tackle position if need be, but generally, we're hoping that we get somebody else either via the draft. There's still that potential for the Trent Williams trade. From what I understand, if the Washington Redskins were to drop their asking price to a third, he would actually be a Jet. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure how I feel. I'll talk about that in a separate video sometime. So then the second guy that we signed was a re-signing of Alex Lewis. You guys have seen in a couple of my videos. I love Alex Lewis, and I wanted to retain him, not for a pencil or for a written-in starter, but somebody to battle for the starting job. At $6 million per year for 3 years, it's exactly that. He's not guaranteed that starting job while he can start. So this guy was procured with a 7th round pick from the Ravens last year. So we used a 7th round pick. He made it through the whole year, so we got a full year, most of it starting from a 7th round pick, and now we signed him for 3 more years. So we're going to get 4 years potentially of starter material from a 7th round pick. So that's a pretty damn good job by Joe Douglas, and I'm happy with retaining Alex Lewis. And the third signing was Connor McGregor. Connor McGovern, the center from Denver Broncos, who I love to death. He is one of the better centers in the league. He's absolutely, he's rock solid. He's consistent. He had 1,013 snaps in 2019, 0 penalties. 0 penalties, and he's not even on the Patriots. What the hell's going on? This guy might actually know what he's doing. And he gave up 1 sack. 0 penalties, 1 sack in over 1,000 starting snaps. So that's pretty damn good, and absolutely the best that the Jets have had since Nick Mangold. So, and we're used to having good centers here, and Connor McGovern is going to fit that bill. And the interesting thing about Fant and Connor McGovern, which actually makes sense when you look at losing out on Graham Glasgow, is we signed them both for just around $9 million per year. And that's exactly, it makes sense that's where we would have been offering. That's right in the range that we would have been offering Graham Glasgow. He ended up getting 11, and Joe Douglas just wasn't willing to move off of his budget. So, and then earlier today, another fantastic retaining of one of our own. Brian Poole has agreed to a 1-year, $5 million contract, which surprises me, quite frankly. I honestly thought that Brian Poole did really well last year, and he had earned a longer contract, maybe even 3 years at minimum. I thought he was going to get a 4-year contract, something between $6 and $8 million a year, maybe even up to $10 million a year. But somehow his market wasn't that robust, and he ended up only signing a 1-year contract for $5 million. That is absolutely brilliant on the side of our GM, Joe Douglas. Getting Brian Poole back for $5 million is a steal, in my opinion, and I love it. I even wrote to him on Instagram. I told him how much I loved it, and you want to know what he said to me? Nothing. He didn't reply at all, which is probably the way that one's going to stay. But I wrote him. I told him. If he's reading it, he knows that GreenBean, the Jets fan, loves me some Brian Poole. So, where does that leave us? Dante Fowler was signed today. He was one of my top hopes for the remainder of free agency. I was really hoping to get Dante Fowler. We didn't. Now, conversely, I'm really hoping that we don't get Clowney. $20 million a year. Come on. Now, if Clowney was to drop his asking price to the 12, I would consider it. But paying this guy $20 million a year would be a huge mistake. He's as fool's gold as anybody out there. Sure, he's a nice player, but he's often injured, and he rarely has the sack numbers and TFL numbers that you would want from somebody making that kind of money. It's just not who he is. So I'm hoping that the Jets stick right where they are with their asking price, and if Clowney realizes that the market isn't there for him, he can drop his price and come aboard. That's fine, but I'm hoping we don't break the bank, and it doesn't look like Joe Douglas is going to do that. So I'm hoping we get a pass rusher. Clowney's fine for the right price. I'm hoping that we sign another guard, maybe that Van Roten guy, the guard. So maybe we can get him. Who else is out there? Brashad Perryman, the wide receiver. And I'm not really loving this Dorsett situation, but that is what it is. So we got wide receivers out there, Robbie Anderson being the main one left on the market. Word is that his market is not what he thought it would be either. Now I'm not happy for the man, but I'm happy for us. The way I see it is that the Jets are one of the higher, people offering the highest money for him. He's waiting it out. He's trying to see what happens. My greatest fear is that he's going to end up in Tampa Bay with Peckerhead Brady down there, but I don't know if that's realistic, but it's a fear I have after that dream Robbie had or whatever. So anyway, what do you think? What are your targets? Who do you want from what's left? We're trying to get into a situation where we're not going into the draft with absolutely needing to hit on a specific position. That's the worst way to go into the draft. We want to make it so we have flexibility. We can still go left tackle or still do what we want to do, but we want to be able to be flexible if need be. So what do you think? Do you think we're going to go with another wide receiver? You think we're going to get Robbie Anderson? Are we signing Jenkins? Are we signing Beachum? Are we signing a lot more of our own? What's going to happen with Burgess? We didn't even tender him. So there's a lot to be done. There's a lot still happening in the free agent world. Come on out to jetnation.com and click on forums. We are rocking thousands of posts a day, every day on Jet Nation, and that's where a lot of the inside guys are too. We have a lot of inside information on Jet Nation. If you want to know, come on out and have the talk with us on that website. Check me out on GreenBean the Jets Fan on Instagram, and I even just made a Twitter today, GreenBean the Jets Fan, and I have no tweets. We'll see how I don't even know how to tweet, if I'm going to be real honest with you guys. But anyway, I hope you're enjoying free agency. Go Jets.